Sean Conboy. I got up to the 4th District here at the beginning of the year. Previously worked in Southeast, Northeast, far Northwest, and northeast side of this side of the bridge in 5 So I'm up here now. I'm the midnight captain. So 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Monday through Friday. I'm here. Give me a call if you want to chat. Got a couple requests for coffee. I'm a big coffee person, so I'd be happy to meet you. My only gripe about the 4th District right now is the Dunkin' Donuts closes at 9 p.m. That doesn't work well for me. Gonna drive halfway across the city to get a cup of coffee. I was invited here by proxy for Commander Griffin to talk about a stop that was conducted at the Penwick Metro Station on February 21st. Took place between 10:30 and 11:30 at night, involved a stopping and detention of about 8 juvenile males and females ranging between the age of 13 and 17, and one arrest was made for a theft of a phone. Before we get into the nitty-gritty on that, do I need to slow down? Is my walking distracting me? Okay. So that's the feedback I get when I'm talking. Sometimes I'm talking too fast, or I'm going this way and you can't hear me over here. About 10:20 that night, a 911 call was placed from a business, a restaurant in the block, 3700 3700 block of Georgia Ave Northwest. Initially it came in, the group of juveniles was attacking the staff, the restaurant staff. Additionally, it was learned some of the youth that had entered the restaurant had tried to go over the bar and steal a bunch of alcohol. And in doing so, they had taken the phone of one of the staff members before they were able to make an exit from the restaurant. So the police, 4th District members responded down there. There was a initial lookout that provided, and if I remember correctly, it addressed one male suspect who was wearing a red jacket. That was in a group of 10 to 20 people. So the police officers get down there, they start interviewing the person whose phone was taken, and start looking at the video from the store to figure out, can we get a better description of who was involved in this, and then what else may have been taken as part of the investigation. While that was taking place, and they were in the restaurant looking at the video and interviewing the person whose phone was taken, a group was observed right around the corner, 7 to 10 males, one of whom had a red jacket on, males and females, one of whom had a red jacket on. Officers went to go stop the man with the red jacket. He ran into the alley. He was tackled and detained. That was the person who was later arrested after we reviewed the CCTV from the restaurant, and it was determined that he was the one who was behind the bar and reasonably had taken the phone. The length of time of the stop was a little bit more than you will normally, or you should expect from the police. It took about 50 minutes for the video to be thoroughly reviewed, and for us to determine that the other 6 or 7 juvenile males and females that had been detained were not the ones that had engaged in a criminal act of taking something from the restaurant. They were identified and they were released. They were on recognizance. From what I recall, when I read the report and watched some of the BWC, nobody was handcuffed. I can't say that for certain, but from what I viewed of it, there was no handcuffs being placed on. I know the person that was arrested was handcuffed, but that's all I can comment on directly. Any other questions? All right, so the commissioner asked me to address a couple things, so I will get right into that. That was the background, the DCist, and I believe Mr. Schneider may have provided some information on the incident. Metro Transit Police, we work with Metro Transit, U.S. Park Police, and U.S. Capitol Police probably most regularly across the city in what we do. Metro Transit is generally centered right around the Metro Transit stations, so the bus stations and the train stations. In this case, they just happened to be there, so they were kind of hanging out with us while we investigated this. They have a very vast area of responsibility, so generally it's difficult for them to be everywhere at once, so we work in conjunction with them to provide police services to metro stations and or the buses if there's issues. So the ages of the kids may have generated some concern. We don't not detain somebody if it's believed that they've been involved in a crime based on the fact that they're a certain age. We don't, that doesn't enter into the discussion. If you said the person with the red jacket on committed a crime, and we see a person with a red jacket on, we're going to stop that person and try to work out the probable cause to make an arrest or to let them go. Now, for making arrests, if the youth is 12 years of age or younger, a police manager is going to make a determination as to whether or not we're going to make an arrest after that stop has been conducted. Any other?
You said they will determine whether to, so if they don't arrest, whether they will call the parent to come get them or just let them go. I didn't understand that.
So the policy as far as notifying parents, if the reason that we've contacted them is for a violation of law or municipal regulation, we will make contact with parents. If it is something like we just bump into them or they're...
No, I'm talking about, for instance, that instance. It hadn't been, and you said you're not going to arrest them,
Yeah.
but you didn't say, I'm going to let them go. So do you call the parent and say, you have to come get them here, or you just let them go?
If it's determined that they were engaged in violation of law, so in this case it was determined that these kids were not involved in the theft, so parents were not contacted. We documented the fact that we stopped them and identified them, and they were released.
I have a follow-up question
Yes, ma'am.
about that. So,
Can you use your mic, Charlotte?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like something there? Sorry.
so the kids were being held there for about an hour, sounds like, and then one kid was arrested and the other
Yes.
kids were let go. In the time the kids were being detained, were their parents informed where they were? Because this is a very long time for like a 13-year-old to be, detained somewhere. How did their parents know where they were during that? And is there any law, I guess, laws or rules about the police notifying parents while they're being detained?
We do not, to my knowledge, have a policy that says you have to contact the parents if we have the child stopped. If there's further action, so curfew violations and or arrests of juveniles that will result in parental notification. If there's a contact with a juvenile that does not result in an arrest or it's not for a criminal act that we have to contact with, we will not make contact with the parent, or there's no, by policy, we do not need to.
But you could theoretically, I'm just trying to understand, you could theoretically, if it took 2 hours to use a video, I know that wasn't this case, and it wouldn't typically take, but you could hold them there for 2 hours, they're just there, the parents don't know where they are, then they could be released after that, according to your rules. That could happen.
So 15 minutes is kind of getting to the threshold of where we're going to make a decision.
Okay.
Up in an hour, like, do we have anything? Because we've been watching the video. We have a crime, we don't have a crime. If we've identified them, we can come back and get a warrant later.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions?
I'm not seeing any hands from the audience too. If you keep questions to this topic, of course, we can open it up to further discussion and Captain Conboy, I'm sure, can, but let's keep it to this topic for now if we can.
Ma'am?
Do you need the microphone up here?
I just want to make sure other people can hear.
Good evening. So once the young people were detained, and it sounds like it's close to 11:30 p.m. at that point at night, Metro, during a weekday, of course, is at midnight. So what provisions were made for those young people to be able to make it safely home?
We have a curfew truancy car that is capable of taking them home if they so wish. And that's certainly, we get into the 11 p.m. weeknight curfew violation aspect of that. However, because we created the situation where they are in violation of curfew, we can certainly facilitate a ride, but they chose to park on their own.
Anybody else?
Next, is this working?
I think so. Make sure you push the button upwards. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thanks. So if neighbors don't know, within our little area that we're represented with, there's a lot of little communities that multiple police officers represent called PSAs, police service areas. We would try and walk you through where all those are, but it's a little bit complicated. We oversee about 3, we border some others. So if you're interested, these meet about quarterly or so, depending on kind of which one it is. It's overseen by a local lieutenant who oversees then the officers in the areas as patrols and other things. It's a great time to come and talk about issues, if this comes up in your local area, problem areas kind of in your community, if you want to talk and identify something, say, in a more informal setting, say, I know there's this issue coming on, like what can we work on? It's a great way to kind of just meet officers that kind of do patrol face to face and just put a name so when you see them on the block. It's usually it's in evenings, I think most times, about maybe an hour, hour and a half or so around our communities. Each of us there's about 2 or 3 commissioners per PSA unit. So if you're interested in ever attending these, I would say the easiest way is if you come find your commissioner tonight or afterwards, we can connect you with that and kind of tell you when it is. Instead of me trying to read out a bunch of boundaries and you in your head trying to figure out, it's going to get really complicated. But we'd love to kind of connect you with that. Usually these are rather lightly attended, and in my experience, the lieutenant there usually spends a lot of time focusing on an issue if neighbors want to show up, because they usually don't. And neighbors are really surprised at how much attention they can actually get to, a trouble corner or get a real honest answer about like what's kind of happening. And it's also a little easier to kind of talk one-on-one and hear, we are actually working on this issue. You may not see it, but let me tell you a little bit more about it. And it's great relationship-wise. It's also a good time to come and say, we really want more presence in this area. We want more foot patrols, or we want something. I'm not going to promise you can get them. I'm not going to be getting across your officers. There's limited resources, but it's a wonderful, underutilized resource in our community. So I'd say please reach out to us and figure it out. There are some other ones. There's a 40 Citizens Advisory Committee that meets up at 6001 up by the Walmart every so often. And that's a citizen board that works and is elected and works with police to kind of talk about larger community engagement issues across the ward and the 4th district. There's a bunch of opportunities. So if you're ever interested in this, please reach out to us and talk. We typically don't always have MPD comment about specific instances, but because this one did generate some interest and a lot of questions, we wanted to bring them here. But typically we will ask you to go to those meetings to kind of talk about MPD issues. The ANC itself doesn't have any kind of oversight over MPD, but we love having them come and kind of having this engagement conversation. So that's kind of what we want to do tonight.
John, just so people know, on the Pertworth News site, there is a link that has all of the names, phone numbers, and email addresses of all the PSA lieutenants, captains, and everyone's who's responsible. And on the calendar on the site is all the PSA meetings and the general, the Citizens CAC meeting. Thank you. That's on the calendar as well. So all the information is available, and you can get Conboy's information or somebody else. Lieutenant Washington is the PSA lieutenant for this area that we were just discussing. It's all on the site.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it.